On our last video, we took full control of Castle Black and performed post-exploitation. In this video, we will move forward to attack the domain controller Winterfell. Stay tuned as I will show you how Windows devices talk to each other and exploit it to take full control of a target. Let's check if our target is alive. As usual, I'll prepare my terminal nicely. Quick scan on the top left side, and I'll trigger an nmap scan again because I lost our previous scan output. Is port 80 open on Winterfell? Looks like it isn't. Let's see on the TCP scan. Oh yeah, it's not. This means this is pure Active Directory enumeration. Since we are now on our second machine, and we got some domain user credentials on the last video, I will consolidate it so we can easily do password spraying. I will move this file to a central location. I have a handy script that extracts the usernames and passwords. Let's run this. It produced 2 files. Now let's do a password reuse via crackmap.exec. It failed. There is a directory named Winterfell, and it tries to read it. That happens because crackmap.exec treated it as a positional argument. In order to work around that, let's rename our directories. Okay, done. Let's rerun crackmap.exec. Sam Tarley's credential worked. When we did the Bloodhound enumeration on our last video, we didn't see any interesting attack path for Samuel Tarley. So there is less chance that we will see something useful inside the target if we log in using his credentials. So let's try to see other ways on how to use his credentials. If I'm looking for ideas, I normally go to Wadcoms. This is a handy cheat sheet that contains a list of offensive security tools for Windows and Active Directory environments. We have username and password, so let's check them. One common service to exploit is Kerberos, so let's check it also. This then returns a list of different commands we can use. Let's try kerberoasting.
What the hell is even that?
Before executing the attack, it will be best if you will have a basic understanding on how Kerberos work. We will not dig in too deep, but we will cover just enough to keep you going. Kerberos is an authentication protocol and is used by default since Windows 2000. This is the preferred as it is more secure than NTLM authentication. An Active Directory environment consists of a key distribution center, which facilitates the Kerberos transactions. This is also known as the KDC. Inside it lives the authentication and ticket granting service, which I will discuss more in a second. There is also a resource server, which is anything that needs to be accessed. It can be any kind of service, such as a database or web application. And of course, there are the users that need to be authenticated. First step is the user will request a ticket granting ticket from the authentication service. The authentication service will send back an encrypted TGT and a session key. User will now send the encrypted TGT to the ticket granting service requesting for a service ticket. The service needs to be accessed will also specified via the service principal name. Ticket granting service will verify the TGT and send back a service ticket plus a session key. User will send the service ticket and session key to the resource server requesting access to the service. Finally, resource server verifies the service ticket and grant the user access. So in summary, there are 6 steps involved before a user gets access to a service. Kerberoasting happens on step 4 when the TGS sends back an encrypted service ticket to the user. That is encrypted with the password hash of the service account that is used to run the service being requested. Anyone can crack that offline, especially if the password is very weak. Now that you have a basic idea how Kerberos works and what is kerberoasting, let's go back to Wadcoms. The idea here is that we need a valid user credentials to look for a service principal name within the domain. This also makes sure that it requests for a TGS and convert them into John or hashcat format. Once we get something, we will request a service ticket for it and crack the hash included. Now let's fire up that mpacket command on our terminal. We got 2 hits here, one for SQL service and another for Jon Snow. Let's put them inside our loot directory. Let's look for the correct hashcat format. I remember it's near the NTLM formats, probably somewhere above. Yep, I'm right. Does this ring a bell? Remember, kerberoasting is done on phase 4, which is the TGS rep. So as long as you understand the concept, you can easily identify what format to use. So let's use 13,100. Let's wait for a minute. Okay, looks like it was able to crack one. It's Jon Snow's credentials. Let's verify by using --show. Yeah, it's only one. By the way, cracking tools like Hashcat has their pot files, which is where the cracked credentials are stored. If for some reasons you want to back it up or copy somewhere, you can find them inside your home directory. We were not able to crack SQL service hash, but don't give up. Let's try another word list. This is one of the situations where the try harder mentality makes sense. I normally try at least one more word list. Still nothing. But it's okay, nothing to lose. Now let's move on. Let's enumerate Jon Snow's credentials. Easiest way is to use Bloodhound again. Same thing, I will type starting node as Jon Snow. I'll click the node to display the properties. There are no sessions. Scrolling down a bit, we see first-degree memberships. These are the immediate groups the user belongs, so let's check. He is a member of Nightwatch and Stark and domain users. Only Nightwatch and Stark are interesting, so let's enumerate them. Let's see if Nightwatch has a direct path to domain admin group. Nothing. How about to Eddard Stark, which is a domain admin? No luck either. Now let's check Stark group. Same, it's a dead end. Since there is no attack path seen in Bloodhound, next thing we want to try is to log into the machine via RDP and enumerate inside. Let's open up PowerShell and check the local permissions. Nothing interesting. Let's look for interesting files. Nothing useful as well. Let's check the command history. This may reveal credentials passed on to scripts or command line parameters. Still no luck. At this point, we might want now to use an automated tool like WinPeas to do the rest of the job to make sure we don't miss anything. So I'll get a copy and transfer it to the machine. For some reason, I'm having difficulty setting up an SMB connection. Let's not waste time and try an alternative, which is hosting the share via HTTP. This box is really giving me headaches. Windows Defender and AMSI are both enabled. I tried to bypass it by downloading the file on a different folder, but no luck. Last resort of trying to disable these protections didn't work as expected. Since antivirus evasion is out of scope for OSCP, let's move on and find other low-hanging fruit. We can leverage another common Kerberos attack, which is called AS rep roasting. Based from the name, it is obvious that this attack happens on the AS rep phase. As you recall from the earlier section, this is where the authentication service sends the TGT to the user. That TGT is encrypted with the user's password hash. The first step in getting a TGT is for the user to contact the authentication service and tell its username. The authentication service will require the user to prove its identity by encrypting the current timestamp with its password hash. If the user was able to perform the challenge, that means the user is legitimate, and the authentication service will send back a TGT, which also encrypted with the user's password hash. That challenge is called Kerberos pre-authentication. However, if pre-auth challenge is disabled, anyone can request for a TGT for any user. That means an attacker can get the password hash for any user within the domain and perform offline brute forcing attack. Going back to our terminal, first thing we need to do is to get a list of usernames. That will be easy, as any low-privileged user can get it. So let's use Jon Snow's credentials. There are different ways on how to do this, but I will use LDAP domain dump, which can be executed remotely. This will give us results in different formats. It even gives us a greppable format, so let's use that. I'll put this to a separate file and exclude the headers. Then edit the file to add the domain name for each entry. I'll remove the 7 kingdoms, which seems a default account created. We need to convert them into this format. So I will use Vim macro to automate it. Press QA to start recording the action you want to automate. Go to the end of line and add the domain. Then go to next line and move the cursor at the start. Now press Q to complete the recording. Let's apply that recording to the next lines by pressing any number of times you want to apply it, followed by its sign and letter, which is the recording name. Let's save and quit the file. Now we are ready to execute AS rep roasting. We will use another useful impacket script. We specify the DCIP, the domain name. The file we just edited at contains the list of users, and we want it to be in Jon format. Let's fire this up. We got one hit, which is for Brandon Stark. This means pre-auth is enabled for all users except for Brandon. Quick tip, before cracking it, always pay attention on the hash format. This will save you time in troubleshooting offline cracking issues. Now, let's crack this using Jon. Jon is really good in automatically determining the hash format. Oh, that's quick. Let's see if we can now find something useful for this user. Quick way to check is using crackmap.exec. Finally, Brandon Stark is an admin inside the domain controller Winterfell. Now let's do some post-exploitation. Let's log into RDP as Brandon Stark. In the post-exploitation part, it will be helpful if you use automated tools at this point to make sure you don't miss anything. As contrary to common belief that WinPeas is only useful for finding privilege escalation vectors, I find it useful for post-exploitation as well, so let's fire it up. It is hard to understand the output, as it doesn't have any color. There is an instruction on the top on how to fix this, so let's do it. Copy the command and paste it on the current terminal. Then open up a new one and fire up again. Now it's looking better. I didn't see anything interesting. Password reuse is a common attack path in Active Directory chains, so let's double check other credentials using another tool. I'm not sure how to pronounce this though. There is a default password. Let's spray it across the users. I'll add that to our password list. Then trigger again my handy script that will create a user and password files from that list. And fire up crackmap exec. Let's check the output. Brandon Stark, Jon Snow, Samuel Tarley. So it's looked like the credentials no longer work, but we may still use it later on our last target. I tried again and the credentials actually work for Rob Stark. I just had a typo on the password, so it's important that you pay attention to these tiny details. In summary, we were able to pawn Winterfell using Brandon Stark's domain credentials via AS-rep roasting. Then on our post-exploitation, we see Rob Stark's password. It is worth noting that Rob Stark is also a local admin on the box. Overall, our attacks are working so far as we were able to pawn 2 targets now. Thanks for staying with me until the end of this video. I hope you learned the basics of Kerberos and the common techniques attackers use to exploit the misconfiguration. See you on the next one.